Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. All right, folks, Big Paul here today, and I have another awesome video with Paul Baxendale, former training partner of Dorian Yates. Paul is going to go through in detail how DY training worked and how they actually train. I think there's a lot of bad information out there about how DY training worked. Heck, there's a lot of stuff in here that I didn't know, and I learned a lot from listening to Paul talk about how they actually train, what the process was they went through, how Dorian's training evolved over the years, and the role that Mike Mentzer played in Dorian's training. It's a really great, informative video. I'm going to break it up into two parts. They did a 4-way split. We're going to do the first 2 days in this video, which essentially was back and shoulders. There's some other body parts in there. And then the other half I'm going to do next week. It's a fantastic video. I think you're going to enjoy it. Paul is a great storyteller, and he fills in a lot of details that I haven't seen anywhere else out there on the internet about DY HIIT training. I hope you enjoy this one. All right, folks, Big Paul here today. I am back with Paul Baxendale, former training partner of Dorian Yates and UK bodybuilder from the 80s and 90s. How's it going, Paul?
Hi, Paul. Very well, thank you. Yep, great here in Scotland. Nice and cold and wet.
It's cold and wet here too, man. Yeah, people seem to like the videos from last week, so I figure we do a few more. I wanted to go through with you, since you were there and you actually trained with Dorian. I think there's a lot of confusion about his DY HIIT training, and I'll be honest with you, I don't fully. Even though I did it from the book in the 90s. I don't think even I fully understand how it works. I'd like to go through in detail the training split, talk through it, and we can talk about what you guys actually did and how it worked.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. I do think there is a lot of confusion over heavy duty training per se, but specifically with regards to how Dorian trained. It's worth also pointing out that Dorian's training evolved. You know, like, for example, what you witness in Blood and Guts, the DVD, wasn't how Dorian trained in 1991. So it was an evolutionary process of him year by year putting an exercise out, putting a new exercise in. There was a point where initially he was training with 2 working sets up until I think it was late 92, and then switched down to 1 working set, which is what everybody knows. But it wasn't until, that kind of late 92 point that he actually made that transition down to 1 working set, which I think with hindsight, and we look back to those 93 black and white photos taken by Kevin Horton in Temple Gym that were released in Flex of that year, where we saw the transition between 92 and 93. It was quite dramatic. I think the drop to 1 working set was an element of that huge development.
Yeah, I heard him talk recently. There was a recent interview up. I don't know where it was at. It looked like he was in a gym where he was just doing a Q&A, and he had talked about how he had dropped from the 2 to 1 working set. And I didn't realize that he had done 2 working sets earlier on. And I think he said that he had met with Mike Mentzer out in California, and Mike had suggested pulling back a little bit. And
I mean, how he explained it to me, he'd been over in LA, and obviously, he had read Mentzer's book even before he really got into bodybuilding really seriously. And he loved Mentzer's analytical approach to bodybuilding. Dorian's mind is very analytical, and he breaks everything down. And there must be a reason for doing something. He won't do anything by chance or just by, he'll work it out in his mind first. And Mike had approached him and said basically he still thought Dorian was overtraining, even though Dorian was only doing 2 working sets, which was very different from what everyone else was doing at the time, the very high volume stuff. And Mike had put Dorian through, I know he'd put him through a bicep workout. I remember one day we'd finished training and he told me the story of this one bicep workout, which consisted of 1 set. And I don't think I'd ever seen Dorian so animated before when he was actually telling this story. He got a really big kick out of the exercise, but the training, but the results too. And I think Mike had put him on an ortholess isolateral bicep curl machine and had literally stacked the thing up. He kind of guessed at Dorian's strength and guessed pretty accurately. And I think Dorian had failed round about the kind of 7 rep mark. And then Mike had maybe a couple of forced reps. And then he got Dorian to just relax for a moment, stuck the pin right at the bottom, added weight to the stack, had Dorian take some static holds, and then take some negatives. So it was literally one set per arm, but it was an extended set involving force reps, negative static holds. And I remember Dorian saying to me, it felt like his biceps had grown 1 inch from that one workout. And to hear Dorian say something like that, must have been pretty special. It must have been pretty special. I would love to have been in Gold's Gym that day to have witnessed that. I know a few people were.
That's very interesting. I remember in that video he talked about too, and he was very clear about it, that while he took advice from Mike and whatnot, that he was his own trainer. He came up with his own program. He did his own diet. He did his own PEDs. His program was his, and he trained himself.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he really respected Mike an awful lot. And the problem is people go to extremes. They either say Mike was Dorian's coach, or Mike was over exaggerating. He really had nothing to do with Dorian's training. He was just using it as an advertisement for his own personal training. Well, the truth is kind of
in the middle, right?
Things in the middle somewhere.
Yep.
And the truth is Dorian highly respected Mike Mentzer. He highly respected his training methodology and had used it. And when he had got an opportunity to speak with him and train with him, he'd learned things from that. He'd taken it away, he thought about it, and he'd come to his own decision. Look, I think I've got to the point where I can drop to 1 set. Because I think what is quite important to say about 1 working set is you have to be at a certain level of bodybuilding maturity to be able to generate the intensity needed to produce a 1 working set worthy of that type of stimulation. Like for a beginner to go in and do 1 working set, they're not psychologically going to be able to generate the intensity,
right?
Or they're not going to have the necessary form to do it correctly. So I think 1 working set is appropriate. I think at a certain level, a certain stage of your bodybuilding development. I think you come to the point where psychologically you can generate the intensity, the fury to be able to get everything done in 1 working set. and you can put everything into it to the point where, and I always say this to people, it's not a case of we didn't want to do another set. It was a case of we couldn't do another set. And that's a huge difference.
Yeah. And I, the way I look at it, there's always, if you're going to have intensity pushed up that high, there's only so much you can do. So it's sort of like we talked about it before, but a knob, like if you're backing off intensity, you're going to just have to have more volume in there to make up for it. But yeah, very few people. That's something that I talk about with people, that I think very few people on the planet are able to generate the type of intensity that he did. I haven't seen, just watching the videos of him train. I've only seen it. I mean, you don't see people in the gym doing that every day.
I never see it. I never see it. I'm trying to think back to. No, I mean I have seen it. I've got friends who, who train heavy duty style, and they're pro bodybuilders. They may not compete anymore, but they're certainly capable of doing one working set. But even they, as their age has matured, they've got to the point where one working set may become, in terms of risk versus benefit ratio, just not the smartest move.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better off to just back off a little bit and do two sets, but have the benefit higher than the injury risk ratio, I think.
Yeah.
So, it's all these nuances which get lost in the black and white extremes that people always try and throw. It's like they have these definite statements, and training's never like that anyway. But we can talk about what was actually done in the gym, and we can give people an idea of what the role of warm-up sets were, what they were like, because I think that's a confusing area too for a lot of people. They don't understand fully the concept of what were the warm-up sets like. No, because in effect, we were doing multiple sets. For the first exercise of the day, we may have done 3 warm-up sets before we did our one working set. After that, it may have only been 1 warm-up set before one working set. But so, we can talk about it all.
Let's go through. I have from his Blood and Guts book, I don't know how accurate it is, but I have what was the training split, and we can go through it. And you can tell me what's accurate and what's not. But I have here, day 1 was delts, traps, triceps,
Abs.
it looks like abs.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It was correct at a certain point in time. Now, I remember when I first got to Temple Gym, Dorian and Kenny were still doing 2 working sets. And I remember Dorian asking me to pass him a dumbbell for a seated dumbbell press. And I can't remember what he was pressing. Dumbbell presses, was it like, I don't know, it was crazy, like 160 pounds or something like that. But that exercise, it simply got too dangerous. Getting the dumbbells in place, he had a little niggle in his shoulder anyway, which may have been caused by these seated dumbbell presses. And so when I trained with him, we started off with Smith's machine military press. So the exercise you actually see in Blood and Guts actually is Smith's machine military press. So the seated dumbbell press was dropped at one point because of the risk injury factor.
Just getting those up on your shoulder is hard enough.
That's what it was. And I was going to mention something to do with chest, but we'll get to that when we actually get to the chest workout. But seated dumbbell press, the first exercise of the day, even today, I know he advocates only one pressing movement. which surprises a lot of people, including a lot of pros. But one pressing movement is all you need, and then it would be followed by 2 lateral movements. So the pressing movement that I remember that we did weekly was military press on the Smith machine, and he would probably 2 warm-up sets, but this is following a warm-up. So even before that first exercise, you've got a 5 to 10 minute general warm-up, bicep curls, lateral raises, a few presses, just getting
everything loosened
the blood
up.
circulated in the upper body. So even before the first warm-up set of the first exercise, there's a general warm-up. And then it would have been straight into a pressing movement, probably 2 or 3 warm-up sets. Okay, so let me now go through what I mean by warm-up set. A warm-up set should take nothing away from your working set. So in terms of strength and power, you're not taking anything away from the body's ability to press the maximum amount of weight when you get to your working set. So the first warm-up may be somewhere around 50-60% of your working set weight. The second warm-up set would be somewhere up around 80% of your working set weight, and then you were in for your working set. So even that second working set where you're working with around 80% of your working weight, you're not pressing it anywhere near failure. You're just getting the body ready for the weight that it's going to have to bear during the working set. So it's all preparation. It's all preparation. It's all just making it safe. And when you go in for your working set, you go in with 100% of your strength, your power. And it even says there, it says on there, reps, was that say 6 to 8, so, you're even conscious of the reps. So even like you hit rep number 6 and you feel a little bit fatigued there, rack it, done, job done. You've got the muscle ready, and then you rest as long as is necessary to go 100% on your working set. Now, so there's no set amount of time on the rest periods. Obviously, with an exercise like military press, the rest period might be, I don't know, 90 seconds or something like that. If it's Smith machine squats, you could be talking 5 minutes, So you take as long as you need. Your working set should never be negatively influenced by your lack of your ability to continue through cardiovascular, performance. It's literally you're trying to stimulate the maximum amount of growth in that one working set. So the one working set, again, we'll talk about high intensity techniques now, because this is another area people get confused about. A lot of people think that high intensity techniques such as forced reps, rest pause, negatives, static holds, things like that are used for every exercise. No. High intensity techniques would have only been used for maybe 2 of the exercises for a body part. For example, Smith machine squats, you're not going to get any forced reps there. No. It's not going to benefit you to go past failure on a Smith machine movement. You're almost asking for injury. So Every exercise has its high intensity techniques which suit it. For example, military press on the Smith machine is ideal for maybe one forced rep just to complete the final lockout, and then do something called rest pause. So you might take 3 deep breaths, unrack the machine again, and try and get 2 or 3 more reps before you finish. Boom, rest pause, job done. Side lateral raises. That was the second exercise for shoulders. These were always done seated to eliminate any involvement of the legs, so that there's no momentum involved. One warm-up set, that's all that was needed.
Can
And
I
then
stop you for one
sure.
second and ask a question? With form, how what was the philosophy on form execution with these exercises? You talked about a little bit with taking the swinging out by doing seated, but was form strict, or was there a little bit of cheating in to get reps out, or how was form executed?
Again, it's exercise specific, but on the whole, the form was absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. I've never seen another bodybuilder train with the execution so perfect that Dorian used on every exercise. The only exercise I can think of there where there might be some body movement kind of incorporated at the very end of the set would be something like seated side lateral raises. Okay. And maybe on standing easy bar curls for biceps, maybe at the very end of the set, which was done absolutely strictly. He may involve a little bit of body momentum, maybe on the last couple of reps, which would coincide with a couple of force reps too. That's the only 2 I can think of. Everything else, absolutely perfect form. In terms of form, I know this is a lot of information to throw out there, and this is
good stuff.
Not overloading people, but we always emphasize the negative part of the movement very intentionally. So we were in control of the weight all the time. We controlled the negative. It was never dropped. We controlled the negative down to the point, the hole, wherever you're going to, and then we would literally explode out into the positive phase of the movement to the point of peak contraction, which on side lateral raises would be shoulder height. So we're bringing those dumbbells up to shoulder height with a slight bend in the elbow. If you're taking the dumbbell much higher than shoulder height, then the trapezius starts coming into play. And, it is trap day, but we're not doing this movement for traps. We're doing this movement for the medial heads of the delts. So on the working set for side lateral raises, we would shoot for between kind of 6 or 8 reps in perfect form. And then Kenny or myself, whoever was sat behind him, would just give him a little touch underneath the forearm, a couple of force reps, and then take my hands away, and he would continue with 3/4 reps, with half reps, quarter reps, until his medial head was completely exhausted. And so that side lateral raise is done for you. And
so it wasn't just a strict 10 or 12 reps or whatever it was. There was partials and
gotcha. On side lateral raises, the movement itself it lends itself perfectly for partial reps. It doesn't lend itself to any other type of high intensity technique, really. I mean, sure, you can give a little bit of a force rep, but no, it's not doing anything. The best you can do is just keep the movement going, even if it's a partial rep. until you can't literally move the dumbbell a couple of inches, you know. So that's the high intensity technique that works best with side lateral raises. We would always finish off delts with another lateral raise, but this would be a cable raise where the cable would be brought from the hip again up to shoulder height. Very strict, very strict. And on these, again, high intensity technique could be employed. And this does lend itself to a slight forced rep. You know, you can just give a little bit, even a finger, just to assist. If a forced rep is something where the spotter is having to give you more than, I would say, like fingertip assistance, you know, it's not worth doing, because you're not lifting the weight.
Right.
You know, you're not doing the exercise, you're not lifting the weight. And I see it too often. You know, I see people, especially on bench press, you know, they might get 2 reps and then they might get like 3-4 reps from the bench, and it's like, but they're not even doing the exercise. The spotter's lifting the bar up. So again, it's like a case of leave your ego at the gym door, walk through with humility and respect those weights, and be humble and perform the exercises to perfection, and you will get the maximum out of it.
Now, question for you. Were you guys logging the weights? Were you writing down how much you did, how many reps, and trying to beat that every time you came in? How did progression work?
That's a great question. And we always kept a workout log of the workouts, but not just the workouts. We would write down how we felt that day. Obviously, the nutrition would be written down too, but we might write general statements in terms of, you know, how we were feeling, whether there was any kind of general fatigue being felt. You know, if it built up, it might be a case of where we might have to take an extra rest day because we felt the central nervous system was just getting overload. So everything was written down, but nothing was written down during the workout.
After.
This was always done after the workout. And obviously, you know, people say, oh, well, how can you remember, you know, what you did? When you're just doing one working set, it's very easy to remember what you did, how much weight you used and how many reps you got. It's very easy. You don't forget.
I think I saw somewhere, doesn't Dorian have his old logbooks for sale? You can buy them, I think, on Amazon.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are. I think they might be his logbooks from 87 through to 92. And every single exercise, you know, all those notes about how he felt each day, you know, you can see them all, you know, that they're all there in his.
Oh yeah, here I found it.
This
1985 to
is another thing.
1990.
This is something I think is a really important point in this day and age of digital phones, iPads and pods, whatever. Hand write your workout logs. Write them out by hand. There's something magical, special. There's an element in actually writing it down yourself that has more power than typing it in. It's almost, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure psychologists would be able to tell you what this interaction is between actually writing it out yourself. It has more power. It absolutely has more power. So buy yourself a workout book. Just buy yourself an A4 pad. You don't, you know, it's like you don't have to go out and get one of these fancy log books. Just get an A4 pad. At the top, write down week 1, but handwrite everything. Handwrite everything. You will get an emotional attachment to that writing, to that day's training. So if there's one thing I would advise people to do in this age of technology is don't move away from handwriting your workouts, because there is something special in getting that down by your own pen, by your own hand.
Yeah, I've been bad about it lately, but I have years and years of written training logs somewhere. All right, so back to this workout for triceps. How did triceps go?
Triceps was always first exercise would always be tricep push downs.
With the V bar?
Yes, yes, with
Okay.
the V bar, and again, there's some there's going to be a lot of these. There was something unique in the way that Dorian did these tricep push downs. He did them on a lat pull down station. Now, if you try tricep push downs on a lat pull down station, you will feel the difference
It's a lot
between
harder.
using, yeah, a lot harder. And it's obviously something to do with the pulleys,
The
you know,
pulleys.
the pulleys movement. But we always did it on a lat pull down station. And again, once the warm-up sets had been completed, we would actually use the old the belts that you would attach weights to if you're doing weighted dips or weighted chins. We would actually attach a 44-pound plate, a 20-kilo plate to a weighted belt when we did our working set of tricep push downs. Now, the reason is the weight that we were using for tricep push downs was so heavy. If you try to do it without added weight to your own body weight, you're almost fighting gravity as well as trying
Yeah.
to perform the movement perfectly. If you've got this additional weight holding you to the floor, you don't have to worry about gravity. You only have to worry about the perfect form of the tricep push down. So a couple of little things in there. I mean, I've done that always, even though the amount of I can push on tricep push downs now is pretty pathetic. I will still put a weight belt around me, just because I just don't want to even think about having to fight gravity. I just want to focus on completing that set as perfectly as I can.
So it looks like here, if this is accurate, it looks like there's a total of 3 working sets for triceps. There's cable press downs, there's the lying easy bar extension, and then the one arm. I'm assuming that's the Nautilus machine extension, the one that I call it the
That's
karate
correct.
chop.
Yep, that was the Nautilus, again, one arm tricep extension machine. Now that got substituted out.
Okay.
Again, it was due to some tendonitis that Dorian had in his forearm, and I if you look at any old photographs, and there's very few of them of him training in the gym, but you'll notice he always wore these elasticated bandages around his elbows and around his knees on leg day. Now, these are simply the elasticated bandages that you can buy from your local chemist shop. They're not supports in any sense. Like, if you put them on, they're not going to give you any extra weight. You know, they're not going to add to your leg press. They're not going to add to your tricep push down. I think it was more of a psychological factor with Dorian. I think it did help keep the area warm, and I because of the tendonitis, I just think it was kind of like a psychological, safety blanket or something.
Yeah, I can see it looks
Yeah,
like
it was just, he liked to feel something against his elbows and against that forearm area. So you can see they're just elasticated. They're not like these kind of neo ply supports you can buy today that will actually assist in your lifts. The ones you can buy today, they're so tight they will actually add to your
Yeah.
pressing,
They
or add to your squats.
They do have ones you can get that are just warming bandages, or that I've seen that are very loose. I use those from time to time.
Yeah, they would be the ones I recommend. Or to be honest, I just would go to the chemist shop, and for a few quid, for a few dollars, you've got yourself what Dorian used for all of his exercises.
It looks like day 2 was back, so there was no rest day between the first day and the second, right?
No, that's right. If we just go back to triceps, just
Oh yeah, sorry.
for one moment, the Nautilus tricep machine got substituted. It got substituted fairly early. I remember doing it, but it might have been 94, around then. He brought in one-arm tricep push downs across the body, as you'll see on Blood and Guts, the exercise that he finishes triceps on there. So one arm tricep push downs across the body, peak contraction, massive focus on the negative, explosive action on the positive. So that was one exercise that got switched. Abs, always our kind of least favorite workout.
I was kind of skipping over that one. You caught me.
Yeah, we did forward crunches, reverse crunches, and maybe some leg raises, but yeah, 5 minutes.
I don't think anybody pays much attention to
No.
abs. That's just how it goes. Okay, so let's see here. Let's move it. So there was no rest. They're straight into day 2, which was back.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, shoulders and triceps isn't a workout that is going to take that much out of your central nervous system.
Right.
Back
will.
Back absolutely will. Now, back was the biggest workout of the week. Up there with legs. I mean, legs tops the list, obviously, but just underneath it is back. Back was an absolute killer of a workout.
Yeah, one of the best backs of all time.
Yes, and he really focused in big time. I mean, his back was never a weak point anyway. He always had a good back, but I think it was because he got beaten by Moma Benaziza most clearly on his back mandatory poses. I think that just really seared it into his mind that he had to have the greatest back. I mean, all Mr. Olympias have had great backs. Lee Haney, before him,
I mean, I don't know how true it is, but they say shows are won from behind.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it said, and I don't know how much truth there is in that, but it can certainly lose you a show. That's for sure. Back day, again, a thorough warm up. First exercise was always the old Nautilus pullover machine. Now, I mean, again, this is just an exception, but I do remember one day we actually started the workout with chins, which is very unusual, but that was a one-off. That was a complete one-off. But it's quite something to see, 300-pound bodybuilder add weight to his body weight and do chins.
That's crazy.
That's something else. Yeah. But yeah, Nautilus pullover, very hard to get hold of these machines today. This was the plate loaded one. This wasn't the stack one, but absolutely perfect first movement to isolate the lats. So there's almost zero bicep involvement on this movement, and heavy. Like, he went heavy. Like, I remember the first time I ever trained back with him alone. Again, that was a real humbling moment, and we'd completed Nautilus pullovers, and then we walked over to the we had a little platform where we would do stiff leg deadlifts and where we would do deadlifts, and we would do barbell rows. It was the same platform, and I remember picking up the barbell to do my warm up on barbell rows, and did my warm up okay. And then it got to my working set, and I think I was rowing something like 3 plates aside, and It's like the first rep, second rep, I heard, put the weight down, Paul, drop it in half and do it properly. It's just an example of how perfect the form had to be. Now, Nautilus pullovers, you can't really go far wrong on Nautilus pullovers. All I would say is really emphasize the negative. Like, don't let that machine just drop back. Control every inch of the movement back and then drive it down, elbows as far back as you can to try and engage the lats fully. And you're going to pre-exhaust the lats, which is very helpful when it comes to movements like, if you're going to do like pull downs or barbell rows where there might be some bicep involvement. Barbell rows, I don't know, is that the second exercise there?
Yeah, let me go back to that. Let's see, barbell rows. Yeah, it said barbell rows is the second exercise.
Yeah. And so when I started training with Dorian, these were always done underhand. And they would involve I think it was just one warm-up. And then straight into the working set. And as I said, I got caught up on it. The form had to be absolutely perfect. The body angle, I would say it's around about 70 degrees, where your upper body is kind of to the floor, and you're using your hands as hooks basically, and you're driving with the lats. So it's elbows up and back, so the bar's coming into your waist, and you just get a momentary, you wouldn't even see it, but you're just getting a peak contraction at the top, but before bringing the bar down again. Now here's Dorian performing the exercise. Now he switched to overhand by this point because he experienced his bicep tear doing this exercise underhand in 94.
Yeah, I know that's a risk. Doing the underhand is tearing biceps. Yeah, I mean, very strict, clean form.
Yeah. Actually, we were talking about it just end of last year. We were just talking training in general, just reliving a few kind of memories and workouts, and he actually said to me, on the day that he tore his bicep, I actually wasn't in Temple Gym on that day. I was due to come in 2 days later. But he said when he strapped his left hand in onto the bar for his working set, he said it felt awkward that day. He said it didn't feel right. And I don't know whether it had something to do with the niggle in his shoulder that he'd had from the shoulder presses. I don't know whether or not he was slightly rowing very slightly out of kind of perfect alignment, but there was something obviously that wasn't quite right on that side. And he's 6 weeks out from the Olympia, so he's got no fat to protect him, he's got no water to protect the joint, and it was just too much. He was, looking back now, I'm sure he would advise people, from kind of 6 weeks out, back off a little bit. It's like,
yeah, I think I heard him talk about that in an interview where he said that if he were to go back again, he would probably back off a little bit towards the end of prep.
Yeah, you've built the muscle you're going to build in the off season. You're not going to build any more during the pre-contest phase. You're really trying to hold on to everything that you grew in the off season. So backing off a little bit from the 6 weeks out point, I think is a smart thing to do.
Yep, I would agree. That's when you see most people get hurt. It's typically also the shoulder thing. I don't know how he tore his bicep, but your bicep tendon inserts up in your shoulder, and from what I understand, there's a groove that tendon lays in. And if it's sometimes it rubs on it and it gets frayed, and then you end up rupturing the tendon up here at the top, and then the bicep rolls down the arm is what happens. So it's a lot of times when guys have pain in their shoulder, it's not actually their shoulder, it's the bicep tendon.
Yeah, interesting.
I
Yeah,
have that same issue. So that probably was a warning sign that something was going on there. These are things that
yeah,
we know now that we didn't know then.
yeah, yeah. True. Okay, so barbell rows, and what do we got after barbell rows on here?
One arm seated hammer rows.
Okay,
I
yeah,
did those for years.
yes. This was, I think, the first hammer strength machine that he actually got into Temple Gym, and from kind of 93, 94 onwards, he signed a deal with Hammer Strength, which was kind of perfect. So he was able to bring in all the Hammer Strength machines he wanted for Temple Gym, and so I think this was the first of them. There's obviously the machine which is kind of called the DY row back machine now. I think that's what it's called, DY
Yeah.
row, but it was the isolateral one arm row. I think it was like the first edition of that machine that we had in Temple Gym, and it's interesting. I've used Hammer Strength isolateral rows since, and the later editions don't feel the same as that first one. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's my body's collapsed.
It might be that you're old, Paul.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But again, that would be one warm-up set and one set to failure. Yeah, there we go. Now, again, really important here. His chest is fully against the pad. The number of people I see do this exercise, and they're moving the same weight that Dorian was using here. Now, come on, think about it. Think about it, people. You're as strong as Dorian Yates, like 300-pound Dorian Yates. Really? No, his chest is right up against that pad, and his lats is what's moving that weight.
That's what always makes me laugh when I see young guys that are trying to heave around the same weight as a 260, 270-pound bodybuilder. And I'm like, you're not impressing anybody.
No.
Just do what you can handle.
Absolutely. And, it's like, you're going to grow. Do it properly. You're going to grow. So, yeah, again, it's one of those cases of just leave the ego at the door.
Yep.
It's a case of, humility is a hard thing, to learn, and there's no better way than to train with someone who is that much more advanced than you.
Yep.
If you can get the opportunity, if there's someone who's better than you, bigger than you, more advanced than you, go and ask them, can you train with them one day? They might say no, they might say yes, but go for it. Just try and get the opportunity, make the opportunity. I mean, people have always told me how lucky I was to train with Dorian. And they're right. I was lucky to train with Dorian. But how much of that luck did I make myself? I traveled for 4 months, 3 or 4 times a week, a 4-hour round trip, until the moment that he even asked me to train with him. So how many people would make that 4-hour round trip?
Not many.
Yeah. It's like, how lucky was I, and how much luck did I make for myself? I put myself in the position where the question got asked, Paul, would you like to join us tomorrow? So, you can generate a lot of luck yourself. So, and again, it's a kind of thing for everyone out there. Try and make your own opportunities. Don't just wait for them to come to you, because you're going to be waiting a long time. I don't know where you are, where you're listening to this, but I guarantee not too far from you, probably within a 2-hour drive, there's a professional training in a gym somewhere. And it's highly likely that you could get there watch them train, get to know them, and who knows, maybe one day they might say to you, hey, do you want to work in one day on a workout with me? There you go. Same thing. So, try and make these opportunities for yourself if you can.
Yep, well said.
Okay, what else we got?
After that, we have the rear delt hammer strength fly. I assume that's after he got the hammer strength machines. I'm not sure what that machine is.
Oh yeah, that was a rear delt hammer strength machine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so but I only remember bent over
Lateral raises.
lateral raises, and like this is where Dorian's strength is just is just crazy. Like he would do rear delt raises with I think it was 85-pound dumbbells.
Oh my God.
85-pound dumbbells, bent over rear lateral raises. I mean, it was just nuts. And there's a reason he had the back he did. Okay, so yeah, rear delt,
And then back
there were bent over
extensions.
lateral raises. Then we would do hyperextensions. Okay, so we had a kind of platform in Temple Gym where you locked the back of your ankles on a pad, and your thighs were on another pad, and basically doing hyperextensions. And we would use a fixed weighted bar. Oh, there we go, perfect timing. A fixed weighted bar. There's not a lot of weight on there, but there's enough. And again, you can see he's controlling that negative, and he's getting a peak contraction at the top, and he's holding that peak contraction. So that's where he's really digging into the spine erectors there. So that's really building up the strength and the muscle. Now, what's really devastating about back day is what comes next. The very last movement of the day on back day is deadlifts. So I don't know what percentage of people do them first on back day, but I would say it's probably 90%. The people who do deadlift are doing it right up front. Now, Dorian's rationale was, well, if I do them last, my back is completely pre-fatigued. Like there's nothing left. So the amount of weight I can lift is obviously highly compromised. I can only lift so much. I mean, I don't know, what's it got? Maybe 6 plates on there, something like that.
4 and a 25.
And he's only going down to mid shin. There is no rest point of this exercise. There is no point. He's not bringing the weight down to the floor. So there's no point at which his back gets any moment of relief. The back is under tension every single moment during that exercise. So it comes last on back day. So the amount of weight you can use is obviously much less than if you did it first in the workout, which makes it so much safer. But you're still getting maximum benefits. So it's one of those risk and benefit ratio. He's getting maximum benefits out of those deadlifts with the minimum risk available. And back day would wipe you out.
That is a lot of work. And I think that's why you don't see a lot of guys with big backs. It's back is extremely difficult. Same thing with legs.
Yeah. And you really have to get that mind muscle connection. And that's where the perfection of form is integral. If you're just moving the weight from A to B, you'll end up moving a lot of weight, but you'll end up with a poor back. But if you focus on the execution of the form, if you focus on the peak contraction, and you actually engage the lats in every exercise that you do, it doesn't matter what weight you're using, as long as it's the maximum you can lift. Job done.
Yep.
Job done. And I think it's worth mentioning at this point as well, the modern trend of the D-handle one arm pull downs or rows, or I see them everywhere. And look, I'm not going to, kind of knock them out of the park and say they don't have any place in a back routine. But what I am going to say is, until you have a solid foundation of a decent back, you shouldn't be going anywhere near a D handle row or pull down or whatever. Build yourself a decent foundation of a very good back before the finesse movements can really be of benefit to you. If you're using like a finesse movement before you even got a back, well, what are you trying to finesse? There is nothing there. You need the muscle there in the first place.
For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.